Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen next door demands I get rid of my pet chicken. After that, HOA tried to punish us, told us to stop them if we can. And after that, my son's girlfriend is hogging up all of our water. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to make anyone get rid of their pet chicken. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen next door demands I get rid of my pet chicken. I've always loved animals, and a few months ago, I decided to get a pet chicken. I named her Lucy, and she quickly became the sweetest little creature. She follows me around the house and garden, and I love having her around. My neighbor, however, is not so thrilled. She has complained several times that Lucy's presence makes her uncomfortable. She says she finds the sight of a chicken in my garden unsettling, and she doesn't like the sound of her clucking. I tried to be understanding at first. I made sure to keep Lucy in a coop during the night, and I even offered to bring her inside during the day when my neighbor was around. But she still seemed unhappy, and eventually she told me that she thought it was unhygienic to have a chicken in a residential area. I was taken aback by this, and I tried to explain that Lucy was perfectly clean and well cared for. I also pointed out that several of our other neighbors have pets, including dogs and cats, which can be just as messy as a chicken. But my neighbor was still insistent that Lucy needed to go. I don't want to get rid of Lucy, but I also don't want to cause any problems with my neighbor. Am I the jerk for keeping my pet chicken, even though it makes her uncomfortable? Edit. Thanks everyone for the thoughtful comments. I just woke up and I'll answer a few of the recurring questions here. There is no law or regulation in my area that prevents me from having chickens. I've seen your comments and messages about getting another chicken, and I will consider that now that I already thought of the name Bradford. I also love the petty route, but I think I'll just fortify the fence a little to make sure Lucy stays on my side. Not the jerk. I would start filling my yard with various chicken sculptures and decor so that she can be really unsettled. But I'm petty. Not the jerk for getting one chicken. Soft, you're the jerk for only having one. Get some more. They are very social creatures. HOA tried to punish us, told us to stop them if we can. This happened several years ago. We installed cameras in front of our home that were looking at our vehicles. Part of the camera angles did overlook part of two neighbors' properties, one backyard and one side yard. The cameras were battery operated and had a function where you could gray out areas that you didn't want to film. When motion occurred in the grayed out areas, the cameras would not be activated to film. The neighbors' entire properties and several bushes on our property were grayed out. We did this when installing them. One of the neighbors was a friend and had no issues with this whatsoever. We showed her the camera angle, and she said she didn't care whether or not we grayed out that area. We still left it grayed out over battery life concerns. The other neighbor's name was Karen. Not really, but we all know why I chose that name. Karen was on the HOA board. As you can imagine, we didn't get along with Karen or the HOA board. We told Karen about the camera and showed her the grayed out areas at the same time that we told our friendly neighbor about it. It was simply an FYI conversation. We're not on friendly terms, not an asking permission conversation. She told us to take the cameras down immediately or we would regret it. About a week after we hung the camera up, we got a notice from our HOA that we were violating the bylaws. The bylaw in question? A nuisance to your neighbors bylaw. There wasn't a specific bylaw preventing placement of the cameras, so this is all they could find to try and punish us. We responded with a letter detailing how we were not violating any bylaws or laws in general, and we asked them to cease and desist. We all know how these stories go though. They did not cease, and they certainly did not desist. Their first response? The HOA has the right to enforce these bylaws. Try to stop us if you think you can. These types of responses were, unfortunately, quite common from this board. We entered this battle with one goal in mind, to cost them as much money and time as possible. The HOA hired a lawyer specifically to fight us. To my knowledge, this has not happened to any other residents. In the following 4 months, we ended up costing the HOA over $4,000 in lawyers' fees fighting this battle. For reference, the entire HOA income was $25,000 a year. When it came time for our official HOA hearing over the matter, we had successfully postponed it, thanks to an attorney friend, 3 separate times. There were over 100 back and forth emails with the HOA attorney and ourselves. Each one of those emails was a 15-minute expense from the HOA. And I was happy to follow up a follow-up question with another follow-up question if it meant the HOA attorney was going to keep billing them. Did I say follow up enough times? We didn't actually want to take this battle to court, so we ended up removing the cameras the day of the hearing to prevent being fined, even if the fine wouldn't hold up in court. The HOA decided in the hearing that we were guilty, surprise, surprise, of violating the bylaw. They couldn't fine us, as the bylaws don't allow a fine until after a hearing has been held, and the cameras were already removed. In the end, the punishment was a sternly written piece of paper on the attorney's letterhead, delivered via certified mail, that stated that we were not allowed to place a camera on our home that had the potential to invade a neighbor's privacy. Keep in mind, the letter specifically stated the camera could not be placed on our home. We left the cameras off the home for about 4 months, until the annual HOA meeting. You should have seen the look on the HOA board's faces when I asked them to explain the $4,000 line item for attorney's fees that simply stated title searches and attorney fees. The board actually tried to hide the fact that they spent $4,000 trying to fight us over a couple of cameras by putting the fees in as title searches. Needless to say, that meeting did not go well for them. About half of them lost their positions on the board. The other half, including Karen unfortunately, remained on the board. About a week after the annual meeting, we installed new cameras, facing the same direction as the prior cameras. Only this time, we installed a post in the ground and mounted the cameras to the post. The admonishment we received after the hearing specifically stated that we were not allowed to install cameras on our home and said nothing about putting them on a post. They did send a letter to try to tell us to remove the cameras, but a sternly worded response indicating that we were prepared to fight them actually worked this time around. I guess they didn't want to spend another $4,000 fighting us. We didn't receive any follow-up responses, and the cameras on the post are still installed to this day, over 2 years and running strong. My son's girlfriend is hogging up all of our water. My husband thinks I'm in the right, but my niece helped me make this post to help see what other people think. I, 52 female, have 3 sons, ages ranging from 13 to 20. My oldest son, who's 20, has a girlfriend who's 19 that hangs around our house a lot. It's a really small house and doesn't have a lot of space. She's a nice girl, but gets on my nerves sometimes because she's always over. I really don't think she's right for my son either. Our tap water has a weird aftertaste, so I order gallon water bottles and use them to refill a big glass bowl with a tap. It is not cheap to get water and other groceries delivered, so I tell my sons, husband, and the girlfriend to be courteous of the other people who live here and not use up the water, as it runs out fast in our big household. Yesterday, I caught her filling up her big metal water bottle with the jug water, and I calmly told her that other people live here too, and she shouldn't hog the water all to herself. She was rather short with me and said something along the lines of, "Actually, this water bottle is big enough to hold all the water someone should be drinking in a day. I'm not hogging water, I'm just trying to stay hydrated." I found her tone to be disrespectful and ordered her to leave. She scoffed and went back to my son's room. That's when I really got frustrated. I opened the door and told her she has to leave. My son got really angry with me and told me that his girlfriend didn't do anything wrong, and why is it a crime for her to drink water? I explained that I order this water for our family to use, not leeches who hang around all day rent-free. My son's girlfriend got a little teary-eyed and left the room and went out the front door without saying anything. My son told me that I was a major jerk and I should have just minded my own business. I think she's just wasteful and a brat. Am I the jerk? Okay, you're the jerk, but I'm going to try to explain why in a constructive way so that hopefully you understand all sides of this. First of all, you have the right to lay down the law of your land in your house. That includes who is in it, who's using your supplies, how they're used, and what conduct you expect from guests. Your guests, including your son, also have the basic human right to take offense at your hostility. Nobody likes to be treated like a burden or an imposition. And you've put this girl in a difficult situation where she feels like in order to enjoy her boyfriend, she has to put up with your antagonism, justified or not. That's exhausting for everyone. The fact is that you're 52 and she's 19, and as the owner of your house, you need to be the one who communicates your desires clearly, not passive-aggressively. You're trying to play both sides by subtly driving her away with your antagonism while also not giving your son cause to be angry with you. The absolute kindest way I can put this is that what you're doing right now is reactionary communication instead of preemptive communication. You clearly have a problem with this girl and everybody knows it. By being passive-aggressive and at times openly hostile to her in order to drive her away, you're disrespecting your son's choice and trying to impose your will on him. This isn't about the water, it's about you wanting her out of your house, and because you're not clearly putting down boundaries, these little things are adding up and blowing over. She's 19 and likely doesn't understand why you're so hostile. If you would rather not have her in your house all the time, communicate that with her. Tell her it's stressing you out to have guests over all the time and that you're feeling claustrophobic. There are many direct, mature ways you can handle this situation, but it starts with you, not her. You're the one with the problem. Edit. I wanted to respond to one comment I keep seeing popping up. Which person OP should be taking her complaints to? Her son or his girlfriend? To be honest, when I reread the post, the proprietary tone OP took when speaking about him, I don't think she's right for him, suggested a couple of things to me. Her methods with communicating with her sons are outdated, and new adult boundaries need to be drawn so that they can coexist in a healthy way. And the value she places in their relationship is preventing her from expressing her frustrations honestly. She doesn't mind her son being there in that small space, she minds his girlfriend. In an either-or situation where she forces him to choose, she might not like the choice he makes. Instead of taking that risk, she settled for a passive-aggressive antagonism that pressure-cooked the situation up to a point where everything exploded over boiling water. My first paying job, and the person thought they would be clever paying me. I've always been interested in electronics and did a lot of reading and studying on my own, and I was very good at buying things at swap meets and repairing them and reselling them as a teen. My first real paying job, a friend of my mom knew a guy who ran a place that supplied answering machines to businesses. They were new tech back at that point in time. He said he was desperate for someone who could fix them as he had ones with issues spilling over the shelves. So I went to see him. It was an interesting meeting, a middle-aged businessman and me. I was 15 or so. We kind of eye each other and he asks me if I can fix them. I was pretty sure I could, and when he pulled out the service manuals for them, he had a couple that were based on the same base. I was quite sure. So he asked me what I wanted an hour, and I was used to getting $3 an hour for watching the kiddo next door on occasion, so I asked for that. He pondered that for a minute and made me an offer that I could not refuse. $10, cash, for each one I fix. I quickly agreed and agreed to stop by after school the next day with my tools to dig in. The next day I show up, and he takes me in the back, and sure enough, he has a couple of big sets of industrial shelves overflowing with the things. I start pulling them off and looking at them. He gives me a smile and drifts off and leaves me to it. I quickly discovered this guy had no tech skills whatsoever. None. Most of them had a brainlessly simple problem. The outgoing message was kept on a big loose loop of tape with a metallic splice at the end. It was a pretty simple problem. The splices in the posts got dirty and did not make good contact, and the tape would just go on forever. About 3 minutes with some alcohol and a Q-tip cleaning those parts, as well as the other things in the tape path, not only had them going again, but sounding like new. I cleaned the front panels up with some spray cleaner and hit the wooden cases with some lemon pledge, and they would look like new. I spent more time carefully coiling up the power cords than repairing them, but when I was done, they looked and sounded like new. The owner came back to check on me a few hours later to see if I was going to be able to crank one out for him that night, and I pointed to a pile of 5 or so, and I told him to check them out. His eyes just about popped out of his head. I got nearly 10 done a night for a while. It did slow down a bit once I got the easy ones knocked out, but I just kept picking the low-hanging fruit and learning more and more about them and getting deeper and deeper into them. He also had units coming in all the time, so I did still have some easy ones mixed in with the bunch. I thought he was going to lose it when we settled up at the end of the first week. I had spent like 3 afternoons there and got near 30 of them fixed. It was a really good payday. He was not super happy with our agreement, but he had proposed it and he had someone who was kicking butt getting them fixed, so he was cornered into honoring it. It was not lost on him that he could have been paying me like $12 a night, and I would have been happy with that, but he thought he would get the better of me. Am I the jerk for not helping my wife and the kids when she wanted to keep them home from daycare and I have to work? So my wife and I have 2 kids, one who's a bit over 2 years old, and the other is 5 months old. I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 at home. Occasionally, I go into the office. My wife is on maternity leave and taking care of the 5-month-old. I take care of the baby for overnights, walkings, and feedings. The 2-year-old is in daycare. Whether I send my kid to daycare 1 day or 5 days a week for 1 hour or 8, it costs the same. My wife likes to pick up our toddler from daycare around 3:15 every day instead of letting me go when I finish work because she doesn't want our kid to be there so much during the day. The problem is, I'm left watching the baby for the 45 minutes while she's gone, and then for the hour that she's taking care of both of them, she gets overwhelmed, stressed, very annoyed at me and our kids. It's just not great overall. Every day, my wife tells me that she's exhausted. She has no time to herself. She doesn't get things done that she needs to. She's overwhelmed, just wants to relax when the baby naps, etc. I try to help out with the baby during the day when I can, like feeding and putting him down during my lunch break. I just try to be available throughout the day if my wife needs me. Anyways, on to the main point of this post. Last night, my wife tells me she wants to keep the toddler home from daycare today. I tell her that I didn't think that was a good idea. How is she going to feed and put down the baby for a nap while taking care of the toddler? She already gets stressed and overwhelmed just looking after the baby. Why put herself through more stress? I told her that I could not take the day off of work and she would be alone taking care of both kids. She said she really wanted to spend time with both kids and felt like she didn't see our toddler enough. Fine, no problem. If she wants to do this, it's up to her. I reiterated that I would not be around to help. Cut to this morning. I got up at midnight and 4 a.m. to take care of the baby. I get both kids ready and I made breakfast for everyone. I start work and sure enough, 20 minutes after I started, I hear my wife trying to tell our toddler that she just needs to go in the other room and put the baby down for a nap. Of course, the toddler doesn't want to leave her side. Toddler starts crying. I can hear my wife getting frustrated. Wife finally leaves to put the baby down and comes back. She now has to juggle going back and forth trying to settle the baby by putting the pacifier back in. We're starting some sleep training. And the toddler who wants all of her attention. Finally, baby gets settled. Wife is obviously stressed and tired and it's 9:45 a.m. She comes into my office where I'm working and asks, did I not hear her struggling? Why did I not come and help? Am I the jerk for telling my wife, I told you so? That I said I would not be around to help, and this is what you get? That she should have let me bring our toddler to daycare? Not the jerk. You have set your wife up for success, and she's choosing to fail. Listen, I don't have kids for a reason, and I absolutely appreciate how much work kids are. But your wife's struggle seems excessive. Lots of people take care of 2 kids at once, and they don't have meltdowns. And then, she doesn't even have to take care of 2 kids at once. And the one day she chooses to do so, she can't even make it 4 hours. Time for a sit down. She's on leave to take care of the kids. The toddler has daycare so she doesn't get overwhelmed. She needs to come up with a system and stick to it, and it can't involve interrupting your work. Your work is the current thing keeping a roof over your head and providing for the family, and there's no reason you should stop work to help her with problems she's creating herself. I can't find much sympathy for her at all. My mom raised me and my sister, who were 2 years apart, and she often took care of my cousins as well. Your wife needs to get it together. No jerks here. Your wife is suffering from mom guilt, which is a societal pressure to do everything all at once with a smile and high efficiency. It's ridiculous and unreasonable, but still a valid emotion that you might understand as well. Instead of the complete logical approach of trying to prove your point, take into consideration that your youngest isn't even 5 months, so hormones and stress are playing a part in this. Talk to your wife to see how to handle this as a team. Offer some empathy and see if she'll open up about why she wants to keep putting this pressure on herself. Remind her that she's the backbone of the house, and if she's stressed and overwhelmed, then things crumble. Give her space to take care of herself so she can be the best mom she wants to be. But if you do the "I told you so" game, it will cause resentment all around, and everyone loses. Am I the jerk for telling my son he's delusional to think that I'll approve of his marriage? My son, who's 25, introduced me to his fiancée, Sarah, who's 20. He informed me yesterday that he was going to marry her. He's dated her for about 7 months in total. I was introduced to her 2 months ago. I'll say outright, I don't like Sarah. She's messy, and by messy, I mean she looks like she lives in a dumpster. Rude. She'll go off on you when you eat the last of the chocolate, even if it's your own chocolate, because she wanted it. She did this to my daughter. I saw it with my own eyes. She's wasteful and quite conceited. My son and her are banned from family gatherings after a particular incident. I've told my son the truth about it when he asked for my honest opinion after I met her. But in the end, he's an adult, and I don't control his life. When he told me about the engagement, he asked me, since it's been 2 months, if I approve of her now. I laughed a bit and told him, no, I don't. And he got mad and asked me why. So I gave him the following reasons. 1. They're 20 and 25 and getting married. which I think is a bit too early since they've known each other for around 7 months. 2. Neither of them have a stable income or know how to cook and clean, so they're hitting a disaster zone. 3. They're not going to have a prenup. 4. Again, I don't like her. But again, I told him he's an adult, so it's his choice. I also told him they were going to have to move out because I have 3 other kids to look after, and Sarah is not at all nice or kind to them, and I won't support him and Sarah, just if they're in an emergency. Right now, I fully pay for and house him. He pays no rent, and he has a part-time job, and his monthly salary, if they budgeted, will give them more than enough for essentials plus savings. Sarah owns her own apartment, so no rent. Plus, I'm fully paying for his college, so no loans to worry about. But other than that, they have to figure out something themselves. I also told him not to expect me to pay for his wedding, because A, they want an extravagant one, and B, with the cost of living rising, I want to save enough money to make sure my youngest, who's in 8th grade right now, will have the same opportunity as him. He got mad at me and left. I recounted this to a few of my coworkers, and they think I'm in the wrong. So I've come here to ask some strangers. Am I wrong? You're the jerk. You're working hard at making your son kick you out of his life. The only positive thing here is that he will be free of you much earlier than without that. I'm sick of being screamed at by entitled people that don't get their way. So my boss has us not seat anyone past a quarter to close. From that point until 5 minutes to close, we are to go only. After that, we're essentially closed, but we make exceptions, especially if someone comes in at the last minute and just wants like a cup of soup or some meatballs or something of the like. Monday night, it's 8:48. We close at 9. 3 people come inside, and I immediately tell them that we are to go only. We aren't seating anymore for the night. Pretty much everything except the floors are done, and the kitchen is 2/3 of the way done cleaning up. Anyway, it's 2 women and 1 guy. The first woman is the main aggressor here. She starts trying to barter with us to let her sit, essentially, before going nuclear.
Well, why can't we sit? There's people still in here.
Me. Ma'am, all the people in here are finished eating and about to leave. Stuff like that. I proceed to tell her I'm sorry. It's not my rule. Our boss doesn't want us sitting until the last minute because we're a local place, and he doesn't want to have to pay the entire staff for over an hour after close because you decided you can't go out to eat until 10 minutes before the restaurant closes. This woman literally stomps her foot and starts throwing a tantrum like a kid.
This is BS. I work in restaurants. Nowhere else does this. There are still people in here. You should let us sit anyway.
The other woman in the group is peppering her friend's tirade with insults and screams of her own.
This is horrible service. How dare you not seat us?
I offered them to go like 6 times, but it wasn't good enough. This entire time, I'm staying calm and apologizing. It's not my rule. I'm not doing this just to be rude. They go to stomp out the door, and they hilariously try to slam the door, which has the thing that makes it shut slowly because it's glass. I don't know if that made them madder or what. As the door starts to shut, I'm ashamed to admit I lost my patience again and I snapped at them without raising my voice. You don't need to be so rude. A guy comes to grab his to-go, and she screams in his face.
They're refusing to sit us. They're to go only, so I hope you don't want to sit and eat. They wouldn't let us sit.
The poor guy just shrinks away and comes inside. The lady's friend comes back to the door and opens it again.
We're never coming back here.
She shrieks into the restaurant. I feel bad for all the customers still in the restaurant. They all just think this lady is nuts. After they leave, I lose it a little and kind of started to break down in front of my coworker. I'm so sick of all these people screaming at me for stuff that isn't my fault or that I didn't do. I went outside and called my mom and cried. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and I've never had so many rude customers the entire time I've been doing this as I have in the last 3 months. Can someone please tell me what's going on? Am I the jerk for telling my nephew he is his father's only heir? Recently, my older brother passed. At that time, he had become engaged to a woman he had only rekindled a relationship with 4 months prior and after having been apart for more than 20 years. Prior to my brother's passing, he had become upset with my nephew, his only child, for failing to return 2 phone messages and voiced his frustration to our mother and stepfather. On the day he passed, our mother was extremely cruel in how she told my nephew that this had happened. She even bragged to me about it and reenacted her conversation with my nephew before exclaiming that she
was less than warm about it.
She also informed my nephew that the fiancé was going to inherit everything. but asked if there was anything of my brother's that my nephew wanted. My mother lied to my nephew. My brother passed without a will, which means my nephew inherits everything and all decisions are his to be made. I told my mother that's the law in our state, but my mother stated emphatically that my nephew wasn't getting anything, along with my stepfather claiming that my brother told him he could have my brother's money. Another lie. I was absolutely disgusted by what my mother and stepfather said and immediately left their home and haven't been back. Over the next few days, I tried in vain to reason with my mother, but she would not back down from trying to give all of my brother's money and possessions to the fiancé and ensuring that my nephew only received a few token pieces of my brother's estate. So I made the decision to tell my nephew the truth. Now my mother, stepfather, and brother's fiancé are furious with me and said that I had no right and should have stayed out of the situation. Telling my nephew the truth has caused a huge rift within my family, and I feel responsible. I fear my actions may have created a bigger issue that my family may not be able to overcome. If I had asked an attorney to explain the law to my mother or taken a more diplomatic course of action, we might have been able to grieve my brother's passing as a family. Instead, neither I nor my nephew was informed of my brother's memorial service and only learned of it after it had taken place. At this point, I no longer communicate with my mother and stepfather, which seems to be the case with most of the extended family. Am I the jerk for taking matters into my own hands and destroying what was left of my grieving family? You may have prevented your mother from committing fraud and going to jail. The only way you are a jerk is if you waited too long to notify an attorney of what's going on so that they can get something in place to stop her, and anything given away cannot be recovered. Your mom is a piece of work. I can't imagine anything a grandson could do that would make me be cruel to him the way that your mother was. Not the jerk. Stay-at-home partner wants me to help with the baby, but I work 100 hours a week. I know the title sounds bad, but I'm finding myself in a very difficult situation, and I'm genuinely not sure if I'm in the wrong here. I, 27 male, am a surgical resident. My partner, 27 female, was a teacher, but is currently a stay-at-home mother to our newborn child. We met in college and have been together for just over 7 years now. Last year, she took a pregnancy test and found out that she was pregnant. We were both happy, but also concerned about taking care of a child. My main concern when we found out was that I could not help out with the kid because I work between 80 to 100 hours a week. However, we both love each other and did want a family, so in the end, we decided to keep it, and then she would take time off of work while I was completing my residency and take care of the baby. I would complete my residency, and then, after having somewhat more humane hours, I would obviously split child-caring duties equally with her so that she can also return to work. It's been 3 months since our kid was born now, and things have been rough to say the least. I'm still working nearly 100 hours a week, and I'm constantly at the brink of exhaustion. If anything, my workload has increased since then, as I'm now learning how to perform larger operations. My sleep is almost non-existent, and I'm constantly under intense pressure due to my work environment. Things have obviously been rough for her too. The pregnancy and delivery were without complication, but it goes without saying that it was still hugely taxing on her mentally and physically. Recently, my partner has been asking me to take care of our kid when I get home. Initially, I helped her without hesitation, feeling like it was within my capacity and wanting to support her. But in the past few weeks, she's been asking more and more of me, and a few days ago, she demanded I take care of our kid immediately as I walked into the door. I hadn't even had time to take off my shoes yet, and when I said, "Just give me a second," she told me to hurry up. I later learned that she had an incredibly rough day and was just at capacity, but in the moment, I was so caught off guard, I yelled back at her to back off. I was too exhausted to deal with it then, so I locked myself in the bathroom to take a long shower and calm down. We later talked about what had happened and apologized to each other, but during it, she essentially told me that she felt like I wasn't doing enough to take care of the kid and that it was our responsibility equally. I told her that I felt like I was already doing more than we agreed on and that I can literally not do any more than what I am currently doing. After talking and arguing about this for about 2 hours, we still couldn't come to an agreement and decided to leave the topic for now. So, am I the jerk for not wanting to take on a larger parenting role during residency? Friends I've talked to seem split on the matter. Not the jerk. This is a case of two people drowning and arguing over who has their head up out of the water a few inches more than the other. You have a newborn, you're working 100 hours a week, and a wife who is most likely so overwhelmed she can't see straight. Both of you are sleep deprived and not in your right mind. What you need is help. I don't care who said they would do what before the baby came. It's here now, and it's not what either of you expected. It's time to start from scratch and use your limited energy to find solutions to give you both reprieve. This right here. No one in this situation is the jerk. They're just both exhausted, doing very taxing and demanding jobs and tasks and need help. I know OP said they can't afford help right now, but they both need to figure out something before this tears them apart. Call for reinforcements. Get a cleaning lady or a person once a week to deal with the household chores, vacuuming, dusting, doing some laundry, ironing, scrubbing bathrooms, well worth the money. Call in grandma or family and friends if possible to watch the baby while wife can just have a nap and maybe even have someone to visit with. Or find a responsible teenager who has experience with babies who can come over a few hours a week and watch the baby or watch TV while wife catches a nap. If childcare options are really good, try to allow your wife to escape child-free for a few hours to the gym, yoga, dance, or whatever that may allow her a bit of child-free physical activity that can help reset her mental and physical health. Being home with a baby is tough. Try to find a few hours each week for you as a couple or family, even if it's just to meet for lunch, if possible. Arrange for groceries to be bought online and delivered. Walmart Click and Collect can be picked up by an Uber or a taxi and delivered to the door. Some grocery stores deliver. Find out what system works. Encourage your wife to find other moms in the same position. Having a support system with other parents or babies allows her to actually visit someone who doesn't mind if baby tags along and cries the whole time. Plus, as the kids get older, it allows them to have other kids in their lives. And offer your wife the opportunity to put baby in childcare and go back to work. Not every person is cut out to be at home with their kids 24/7. Doesn't mean she's a bad parent, but she re-energizes by outside of home interaction. Not the jerk. You're both in a hard situation, but you can get through it. Don't be afraid to call for reinforcements. Also, check with the hospital you're doing a residency at. Do they have a childcare program that you could use? Even part-time? Or can they recommend one? Just start brainstorming ideas with your wife on how to make this work. Write down good ideas and some absolutely silly ones too. It actually will help even if you are met with glares. Then after you have tons of ideas, serious and ridiculous, you go through the ideas together and start crossing some off to narrow down the list. Don't narrow it down too much. You want plans A through E because sometimes plans change. And try to agree to help your wife figure out what she needs at this point to be happy and how you both can make it work. Good luck, OP.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.